Today I am reviewing Ecco the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis. Hello everyone, Alec Alger the SideQuest Gamer here, and today I got a special treat for you guys. Welcome to part 2 of my Sega Genesis review marathon. While my college classmates are going down to Florida this spring break and getting wasted, I'm playing video games during the spring break and getting wasted by enemies. Bad jokes aside, Ecco the Dolphin is actually a pretty terrifying game, even to this day. I mean, most of you would be like, oh, how could a game with a cute little dolphin be scary? You're just a wuss. Well, to those I say, at least I have the courage to admit I'm unsettled by certain elements in video games. It's just the atmosphere is so good. Now let's take a look at this game, shall we? I don't have to explain myself, but you know I will anyway, so let's roll the footage and check out the scary and calm parts of Ecco the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis. Ecco the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis was developed by Novatrade International and published by Sega. After Novatrade wanted to make a game centered around dolphins, game designer Ed Annunziata did some research on dolphins and took a lot of inspiration from the book Sounding, which explained how dolphins use echolocation, which became a primary focus in the game. But anyways, right off the bat, you will see that Ecco the Dolphin takes advantage of the Sega Genesis's blast processing capabilities because Ecco himself moves very smoothly. The frame rate rivals that of even Sonic the Hedgehog. Whatever. Sorry, Sonic fans, but it's true and you just have to accept that. Now can we all please be adults here? Now, okay, let me explain myself. Obviously, Ecco the Dolphin isn't as fast as Sonic. Or is he? I don't even know if land and aquatic speeds are even comparable, but the animation when Ecco is at top speed seems smoother. But let me say that Ecco, like Sonic, is pretty fast and pretty awesome too. There, is that better? Anyways, the basic premise of Ecco the Dolphin is that Ecco himself lives in a dolphin haven until after attempting a challenge where he jumps out of the water as high as possible, all of a sudden Ecco's podmates are sucked into the sky by some ominous evil being. Whoever the main villain of this game is, it sure has some great timing. Ecco the Dolphin, saddened by the capture of his podmates, goes on a journey to search for his podmates, seeking out the help of various creatures in the sea and strange otherworldly entities. There's even time travel involved later in this adventure. Now, my explanation of the story is very abridged because I really don't want to spoil anything, because it's much deeper than that, actually, which isn't really common for a Sega Genesis game back then that wasn't Phantasy Star. I mean, the story is also kind of optional because it only progresses by you talking to other indigenous sea creatures via echolocation, and they reveal tidbits of information, including where to go next. You can skip talking to them, of course, but their dialogue is very brief, so be sure to talk to any of them whenever you get the chance. Now, there are many challenges ahead of you, and many of the sections of the interconnected world of Ecco the Dolphin are very maze-like, kind of like a Metroidvania-style game, except there isn't a lot of backtracking involved, and you really can't backtrack to previous levels at all. Now, to access new areas, you either have to find a crystal with an echo sound wave that acts like a key to other crystals, which will allow you to access certain areas provided you hit the crystal blocking it with your acquired echolocation from a certain crystal. Or in some parts of the game, you have to rescue a certain number of dolphins to move on to the next area. Now, let's talk about Ecco the Dolphin's controls. I really have to mention this. They are okay, but they require a lot of practice to get used to. Press A to use your echolocation, B to use your bottlenose attack, and C to give you a burst of speed. The directional buttons move Ecco, obviously, but this is where the controls feel kind of awkward. Let me explain. I can't always jump where I want because sometimes I would find myself either with not enough momentum or the correct amount but registered me shooting upward instead of diagonally. They're not bad controls by any means, but there's a lot of stiffness you have to get used to. It may even be a deal breaker to some people, but I've managed with the controls I had at my disposal. There's a lot to improve, but I'll take it for what it is. Now, the music is just fantastic to say the least. They give off an eerie atmosphere, and the aforementioned Ed Annunziata even played Pink Floyd to the music designer to give them an idea of the type of atmosphere and feeling he wanted the game to go for. In fact, Annunziata went as far as to name the final level Welcome to the Machine, so there's a lot of Pink Floyd influence in this game. Fine by me. I so happen to be a big fan of Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here is so happen to be my favorite album by them. And it so happens that that album is the inspiration for the music of this game. But anyways, let's not get sidetracked. This is a review show, not the Grammys. Now believe it or not, there's a Sega CD version of Ecco the Dolphin. And that version is known for having new, redesigned levels and better music. When comparing the Sega Genesis version of Ecco the Dolphin to its Sega CD counterpart, the music is much better due to the MP3 quality that compact discs are able to reproduce. The Sega CD version's music has an orchestra playing in the background that can immerse you even more than the already amazing music to the Genesis version. Spencer Nielsen composed both games' soundtrack, although he collaborated with, I'm sorry if I mispronounce these names, Brian Calburn and Andres Magyari for the Genesis version. But both games' soundtracks are great. This is part of the reason why the game immerses me to the point where it's kind of terrifying. The game scares me because the music playing in the background makes you feel all alone versus all the dangerous creatures in the sea, the mystery of the ocean. It's just brilliant. But now let's talk about the difficulty of the game. One thing to know about this game is that it's pretty hard, frustrating at points, especially with the final auto-scrolling level. Designer Ed Annunziata purposely made this game difficult is because he was aware of the rental market and wanted to create a game where it couldn't be beaten in a mere weekend, so kids would have to buy it rather than rent it. And kids buying the game is the only way that developers would make any money off of it. And obviously, the owners of these rental stores are making a lot more money than the developers are making off the game. All the store owners had to do is pay $60 for the game, but that owner of the store would later get $180 because kids rented it over and over and over, which is probably why renting games is illegal in Japan. So we went the North American Battletoads route. More on that later. Now, I don't mind challenging games, but if you don't want it to be beaten in a mere weekend, then make it longer. But of course, factor in cartridge space and all, but come on, intentionally making a game difficult is just plain cheap. There's a lot of cheap enemy placement, and some of them respawn when you go slightly away from the screen. I mean, why does it always seem that jellyfish and sea urchins are always placed in a crucial area where you have to jump over a piece of land? So you go deep underwater to build momentum, but one problem, the jellyfish get in your way and then you get hit, you lose momentum, and even when you dodge them, you lose momentum. Now how is that fair? I mean, this doesn't happen a lot, but it's pretty annoying and noticeable. Well, at least when Ecco progresses in the game, he gets upgrades to his echolocation, which allows it to take out enemies, so it would be much easier and health can be conserved for more tricky situations. But the game does get harder and harder with that. But the game is very playable, and with the questionable ethics put into the level design regarding difficulty, this game is well programmed, and I can easily see why this game is one of the best secondary reasons to get a Sega Genesis console. Do you want blast processing? You have it in its finest. I love how this game merges to the realistic motions and behaviors of dolphins, then puts them in a science fiction setting. This is unlike any other game I've played before. I mean, sure, Sonic and Rocket Knight were mammals put in a science fiction setting, but they were anthropomorphic with weird gimmicks not found in the actual animal they resemble. Ecco looks and behaves like a real dolphin, since they actually do have echolocation, although how they use it is kind of far-fetched. but it's a very nice touch in the game, and I can see why this game has a dedicated cult following it has. But to be honest, I don't think this game aged that well. I mean, don't get me wrong, kids will love this game even to this day. I mean, it looks very good still, but the difficulty dates the game since many games in the 90s had that kind of ruthless policy. And I have no problem with a hard game, but I do have a problem if it's hard for the wrong reasons. For some, their first playthroughs can be very miserable, but if you like a challenge, then you'll have a nice helping of it right here. I mean, I sure like myself a challenge occasionally. I will say, even with my minor grievances, the game was extremely enjoyable for me and one of the best games for the Genesis. And luckily, this game got 3 sequels, Ecco the Tides of Time and Ecco Jr. for the Sega Genesis, and then there was the Dreamcast Ecco Defender of the Future for the Sega Dreamcast, of course. They're all worth playing, but Ecco Jr. has an edutainment emphasis which may put off some people, including Ecco fans. And Defender of the Future, while I never played it, I've seen gameplay footage of it and I've heard many reviewers call it kind of boring, although it's a nice game to, no pun intended, test the waters of the Sega Dreamcast's hardware capabilities if Sonic Adventure and Jet Set Radio weren't convincing enough for you. But I did hear great things about Ecco the Tides of Time, especially from Game James. Check out his Let's Rewind video about it, and his channel while you're at it. Links in the description below. I will review those games eventually, but don't count on it being anytime soon. Heck, don't even count on it being this year. Maybe next year, but I just got a lot on my plate. But overall, I would give Ecco the Dolphin an 81 out of 100. It's worth playing from start to finish, although feel free to take a break if it gets too hard. Even though this game doesn't have a save system, it does however have a password system. So check out Ecco the Dolphin. It's available for download on all of the major platforms of today. Probably $8 as of writing, but be warned, this game is hard sometimes for the wrong reasons, but you will get your money's worth. So please, check it out. Thank you all so much for watching my review of Ecco the Dolphin for the Sega Genesis. Please subscribe if you're new here, I would really appreciate it. And while this review ends, my spring break begins. So see you all next week for part 3 of my Genesis Marathon, and remember to stay awesome.